I remember I was partying with my friends, and I just remember thinking, okay, if I'm gonna keep living this life, then nothing's gonna change. My name's Arianna, and growing up, it was kind of rough right from the start. My parents had split when I was 2. Despite all of that, I was still a pretty happy kid. I was in lots of different sports and stuff, and went to church every Sunday with my grandma. I was into ballet and baseball and played a lot of school sports. Literally anything to just have a little extra time away from home. As I got older, I kind of started getting into the wrong crowd. By 12, I was already going to grad parties and partying with my older friends. There was times when I would spend days away from home. I remember my mom's 40-something birthday. I couldn't make it home because I was somewhere partying, and so I texted her and I was like, "Mom, sorry I'm not home," but I didn't tell her where I was, and that's when I knew, okay, you gotta settle down. But then my friends started to get into hard drugs, and I knew I didn't want to because growing up, there was a lot of addictions around, and I kind of always had to be the one that had to call the police when things got rough. I kind of put myself in that position because I have a very elderly grandma that there's a lot of rough people living with my grandma, and she lived kind of close to me, so I just walked there whenever I heard of anything happening, and I was always there to call the cops. A couple of years ago, a family member started getting into selling drugs, and it was kind of happening outside of my grandma's house. So there's a trap house not too far from our house, and so he was kind of having people come there. Guns were coming in and out of the house, and I was always the only one around. So he started to use the product, I guess, whatever he was selling, and there was always random people. So there was this one time I had to call the cops when a fight broke out in the basement with a couple of people, and I always said I didn't want to be like that. I'm not going to be like that. It was pretty traumatic. At the time, I think I was kind of used to all the violence happening around me, so I made myself a security guard of the house. I was still, going out a couple times a week or every other weekend and hanging with those friends. And I remember growing up, I would go to Bible camps every summer, and I hadn't gone the last year before this year. I remember the date that I went, July 21st, 2021. I said I'm gonna go because I was seeing flyers that they were short-staffed. So I went there, and the weekend before I went, I remember I was partying with my friends, and I just remember thinking, okay, if I'm gonna keep living this life, then nothing's gonna change. So I went, and it turned out they needed a worship leader too. So I had just learned 4 chords on the guitar, which is all I knew. So I said, I'll do it. And so me and my 4 chords led the worship that whole time. I was supposed to be a leader in training because I was only 16 at the time, but they ended up throwing me in with a little girl cabin. And with that came an altar call kind of thing. And I had to sit in the pew and pray for whoever wanted prayer. And I remember this one little girl, she came and she said, my parents are drinking and my siblings are drinking, and I just want you to pray for them. And I was thinking, man, I really feel this little girl, and I don't know what I can do for her because I myself am not really a righteous person, I guess is the word, I don't know. So during the time, I had told them already, I don't think I'm the right person for this. I don't think I have a testimony that is worth hearing. But still, I sat there and I said whatever I needed to say. It was all made up or something, I don't know. It was not really honest. And that night, I remember all those little girls sat there and they told me, we want to give our lives to Jesus. So they had given us a pamphlet, and it had you believe he lived and died again. all this stuff, just like kind of guidelines. And so all together there, I said it with them, and that summer I remember we all gave our lives to Jesus. For me, I had grown up in a pretty Christian family, so I had known God all my life, but somewhere age 12, I started like straying off the path and started living for the world, trying to please everybody except for God. So that summer I rededicated my life to Jesus, and after that weekend I kind of like, I felt an immediate change. Like it's not like I didn't want to go back and drink with those friends, but like the desire that I had to go and do that was like almost nothing, not even there. It was kind of lonely for a while. Like I had no Christian friends or something. Like I had no people my age that knew God or wanted to know God. So I prayed for that. I said, God, I'm so lonely. I don't know if I can do it by myself. These people came to my reserve, and they were like all young Christians, and afterwards there was only a few of us because not a lot of people came to that little meeting. And so I sat in a circle with a few of them, and they were talking to me, and I said, yeah, it's a pretty lonely walk sometimes. And we exchanged numbers, and we still talk to this day. And that was my first Christian friend. I started to feel like I didn't have a purpose. Like I'm living with God in me, but like I feel like I'm not doing my part and like sharing the gospel. So since I had like a little bit of music ministry experience from that one summer, I started to post my gospel music on Facebook. And after I posted a couple of videos, I started to get invited to places. Like sometimes it was out of province, or the first place I got invited was a little reserve called Minnesticwin. And after I started to get invited places, my community kind of grew, and it was not that I was alone anymore. And I feel like that's also when I kind of found my purpose. For as long as I could remember, my dad was an addict, and it was really hard for us for all of our years, I guess. A couple of years ago, 2 years ago, I think, he got sober, and he never really believed in anything. And there was a time, I think a couple months ago, I went to visit him, and he was so proud to show me his Bible, and he said, my girl, you really encourage me. And there's also another time when a family member that also struggles with addiction, he was talking about me to my grandma, and he said, Kukum, ever since she started following God, everything is falling into place for her. And I said, that's so true. That I didn't realize it, but that is so true. Everything is falling into place, and yeah.